Good evening once again, and welcome to the Ref's Opinion, as it's now called, and welcome to all the viewers from around the world. And we do have all around the world people in India, Pakistan, Australia, Canada, the USA, the UK, and of course Africa as well. So it's quite an international audience that we do have, and I do appreciate your uh, uh, giving up your time on a Monday night to watch into the show. Just a reminder that daylight saving, as we call it, has now started here, and it started on Saturday night, Sunday morning. We will stay the same time, 8 o'clock. So for people in South Africa, for example, where you used to be 2 hours ahead of us, you're now just 1 hour ahead of us. And wherever you are in the world, you can adjust accordingly to your particular time zones there. This is the show where we discuss all things referees and refereeing, including decisions made and some even not made. Yellow cards given, not given, red cards also given and not given. But I want you to participate in the show tonight and every night by giving us your opinion or asking your questions. And there's a little area on the bottom right-hand side of your screen where you can leave your comments, and I will gladly read them out for you. So I'm delighted to be joined once again, as per usual, every Monday night by former Premier League referee, former FIFA referee, former World Cup referee, and the man responsible for introducing goal line technology in the Premier League in England, Keith Hackett. Keith, good evening and welcome to the show.
Oh, great to be back on.
Now, last week, you remember I had mentioned it, but we didn't quite have time to get around to it. And that was the African Cup of Nations final between Senegal and Egypt. And the referee was a young man called Pierre Ghislaine Acho from Gabon. And you may remember, if you were watching, or you may have read about it, that there was a disputed penalty where the Senegalese players were taken off the field of play. Did I say Senegal and Egypt? I meant Senegal and Morocco. And the players were taken off the field by the coach and remained off for a good few minutes. But technically, the entire team had not left the field of play because their most famous player, Sadio Mane, did not leave the field of play and was encouraging his teammates to come back on, which they eventually did, and they went on. The penalty was taken, and whether it was deliberately missed or whatever, but it was very, very easily kicked straight into the goalkeeper's hand, and so the time went on. But the big issue here was the referee, and he faced some criticism. Did you see the match, Keith?
I saw the controversial bits, really.
And they were blaming the referee for not taking various actions, but in my opinion, and Keith, you can agree or disagree, the referee was absolutely 100%. There was nothing he could do. He waited there. Some were saying he should have taken stronger action. He should have abandoned the game, etc., etc. But then the game was forfeited to Senegal, to Morocco, because of Articles 82 and 84 of the CAF constitution, which states that if a team leaves the field of play in protest, that they automatically forfeit the game by a score of 3-0. They are appealing that, and that's an ongoing situation. But we want to talk about the referee and the duties of a referee in such a situation, because you can get it not only at international level, you can also get it at local level and Sunday morning level, for that matter. What was your opinion of that, Keith?
I think it's unfortunate because there are two differences here that we must recognise. First of all, we've got a stadium that's full of spectators. We've got a team that wanders off. There's a duty of care that the referee has to take on board here. That is, he abandons immediately, and then the problems are with the egress of the spectators from the field of play, from the stadium, and out onto the streets, where there is a possibility of a lot of conflict, misconduct, arguments that turn into violence. And this is about referees at the elite level are not just managing a game of football, they're managing an event. And of course, there's also the pressure that this game's covered by television and the damaging image of the game around the world with people who are viewing it, saying, what's going off here? The referees made a decision, right or wrong, that it's a penalty kick. That does not give a player or a team the right to protest beyond what is acceptable. You know, Law 5, you often quote it, I quote it regularly, the referee's decision is final. So I think that the criticism of the referee is, what else can he do? You know, I've heard, well, he can caution every player for leaving the field of play. That's a simplistic view. You know, yes, the law would allow him to do that, but what is the outcome of that? Are the players going to immediately run onto the pitch and apologise to the referee and the game restarts in that situation? I think that what we have here is this is a major final. There are security people present. There is a ground controller present responsible for the game's security, not necessarily the outcome. And therefore, the referee has the right to expect in these situations that the match officials, not the referees, but those officials from the organisations that are present, particularly security, should resolve this issue. Now, I was critical of the fact that a game or a result of a game is being awarded around a table. I don't like the thought of that, but we recognise, as you've rightly quoted, there are regulations within CAF, and that is why I think the panel that sat in to view the situation and make a decision came out with the outcome of saying 3-0. Me personally, I would have liked this game to be replayed in its entirety in a closed stadium, no fans allowed, covered by the media, so I don't have a problem. You can watch the game on television or wherever, in bars or wherever it's beamed, and perhaps put on a senior team of officials. That's not undermining the referee. It could be seen as that. This is like, okay, let's get this game on. Let's get it completed in the way that it should be. So that's my view.
I wonder, and in a neutral country, I guess, as well, because
Yes.
Morocco were hosting the tournament. So, actually, I would slightly disagree with you on the issue of match officials, because I don't see anything that this referee did wrong.
No.
Lots of criticism. So I would give it to the same referee, the same match officials, but give it to a neutral country and have it replayed. But then, Keith, are you setting a precedent then that any team can do that at any time and only get punished by a replay?
Yes, of course. I mean, that's the basic problem. I mean, the basis of my view is that I want a game of football decided on the field,
Sure,
not around a table. But having said that, and being slightly critical when I first saw the decision, but you kindly clarified that this potential situation is covered in the regulations of CAF. Therefore, at the end of the day, when a team takes the field of play, whichever team it is, they're operating within the laws of the game and in addition to the regulations of the competition.
Yeah. Which would have been put together and voted on by the member associations.
Yeah.
So they can't say they didn't know about it. And if they didn't know about it, well, then that's their problem because they didn't read the laws or the rules of the competition.
Correct. And maybe, I don't, maybe at the time, a CAF official who was present might have said to those that are in charge of the team, this is a potential outcome. If you don't get back on the field of play, this is going to be where the decision is affected by your actions. I don't think any team should walk off the field of play because of a referee's decision. So when you actually look at it overall, for me, there's no blame on the match official whatsoever.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Absolutely no blame.
He's left from Gabon. Yeah.
He's left with a problem created by the players who don't respect his decision. In Law 5, he's the sole decision maker. And my earlier view of the people who sat on the panel to make this decision, CAF members, it's there it's very clear. The regulations are there. They've applied accurately the regulations. So I think that really has to be the end of the matter. And I think, okay, they're going to appeal, as I understand it.
Yeah.
I can't see them winning the appeal.
I can't either. And I don't think they should, because they have contravened Articles 82 and 84 of the rules of the competition. Yeah. So if they're going to allow that appeal and give it, well, then they might as well tear up their rules and throw them in the bin and start again.
Well, I mean, my own club in an FA Cup game fielded an illegible player by mistake. We early in the season we brought in a player from another team. That player didn't inform us that he'd already played in a cup competition. He was selected, he played, and we were charged, and we didn't appeal because we said, right, we were not aware that this player had played and therefore was not allowed to play in the cup competition. And we just accepted that. That was us thrown out of the competition as a club. And then what we did was we said, right, okay, what we've got to ensure is that our paperwork and our procedures are very clearly defined so that this doesn't happen again. And I know our club secretary, who's been in the post for years and years and years, very experienced, I think that's the first question he asked when a player's coming from another team. Are you cup tied? And I think he'll go for a further check on that with the FA.
And you can only accept and hope that he's telling the truth.
Yes.
You should.
Well, exactly. But I mean, sometimes you can check these things out.
Yeah, indeed. Just a reminder, you're watching the Ref's Opinion. This is a show goes out every Monday night, 8 o'clock UK/Irish time. I'm noticing on my screen that there aren't as many viewers as in previous weeks. So I'm wondering if people have realized that the daylight saving time has changed. It'll always be 8 p.m. UK time, but in your country or wherever you are, it might be at a different time. You might be an hour forward or less forward, whichever the case may be. But anyway, thank you to those who are watching. Keith, amazing. I'm really amazed at this retrospective 4-match ban for a player in Scotland. Yeah. I mean, a red card is 3 matches. Yeah. This guy got 4. Explain, please. What happened was
Motherwell's Callum Slattery was guilty of simulation, the outcome of which is his opponent was red carded by the referee. The referee, unfortunately, did not have a view of the incident, and it was brought to his attention by one of his team officials. At the time, I question when asked, is the red card the correct decision? And this is not me being clever. I'm thinking that the referee cannot have seen this particular incident, and I don't think he did. So what happened was the Scottish FA disciplinary panel reviewed this incident. And amazingly, and I want to applaud them, because what they did was, in reviewing that, they could see that Motherwell's Callum Slattery was guilty of an act of simulation that resulted in his opponent getting a red card incorrectly. The outcome was a 4-match ban. Now, if you're a manager in Scotland or you're a player in Scotland, right, and you've now got this precedent set by the Scottish FA, who, by the way, over a number of years have been pretty consistent in terms of dislike of acts of simulation. You know, I can remember when a former player became the chairman of the Scottish FA several years ago, and the first statement he made was, I'm going to outlaw and re-referee acts of simulation now and punish retrospectively. So whilst I think this had sort of plateaued and probably I didn't see many incidents of recall on decisions, this one has been acted upon. So players, managers, coaches, you need to keep your house in order. And let me tell you, I applaud the Scottish FA's disciplinary decision, because I think this is helpful to their match officials. Because we all know the players are so good at acts of simulation.
Oh, unbelievable.
That, you know, sometimes, even with my eagle eye, I've got to look 3 or 4 times before I can determine whether it is an act of simulation or not. Because players are very clever at manufacturing contact, swerving slightly, changing the body shape, broadening it, or even, you know, catching the fall before it even happens. And it's not easy for match officials.
And you know, Keith, you always know when a player is trying on simulation, because when he's tackled and he goes down, the first thing he does is grab the ball.
Yep.
And
or he looks in the direction of the referee.
He knows he hasn't been fouled, but if he doesn't get the foul or the free kick, well, then they're not going to get the ball. So that to me is a very obvious sign. I just want to, I think this goes back to our previous one. This is from Marvin Ash. And Marvin says, shouldn't the referee also be punished for an incorrect interpretation of the rules? Now, Marvin, you are new to this show, and thank you very much. Really appreciate it. You taking the time to send in your comment, and thank you very much again. And please, if you let us know what country you're in or where you're sending this in from. Shouldn't the referee also be punished? I presume you're talking about the Senegal-Morocco game. Well, this is big debate. I mean, as we have mentioned 100 times, the referee's decision is final on all matters pertaining to the game, and it is, as Keith has mentioned many times, a subjective decision. It's the referee's decision. He does what he thinks is right at the time, and making a decision based on what he sees, and his interpretation is it is this, that, or the other, but his decision is final. So I don't see where the referee could be punished in this particular incident.
I'd just like to cover this whole question of accountability from a refereeing point of view.
Yeah.
Because obviously in several countries now, you have professional referees. They're salaried, they're employees of the organisation. Here in England, we have the PGMOL. I was the former boss. There has to be a level of accountability. And therefore, what is important is when you have an incident of this nature, or incidents that the referee may have got wrong, you know, a missed sending off in in this situation, what I think first of all is important is to ask the referee, how did you come to that decision? This is when you're coaching the referees. The second point then is to use that incident as a form of experience and discussion and debate and a learning point of view. So from my point of view, there were times when a referee's made a major error, a KMI as we call it. In that situation, I would look at that very carefully. I would determine over a period of how is this referee's performances? Is this a one-off? Is this a dropping off of form? But then the outcome would be the need to give that individual referee operational advice. What has he learned from that situation? Would he repeat that particular incident? Then, having discussed that face to face with that match official, we then take that into a group scenario with the remainder of the referees and have an open debate, so that you've got referees of variable experiences saying, right, okay, we're looking at this, we're seeing this particular action as an error. How can we avoid it in the future? And, you know, I've said before, the process of a referee in decision making is to see, recognize, think, and then act. That's a process. And you then ask, has that process gone through? Now, in my role as the former boss of the PGMOL, I had the task of actually saying, right, face to face with the referee, you're not responding, you've got a loss of form. I'm going to put you into the Football League. That's not decrying the Football League. Away from smaller crowds, I'll be very selective so that you can recover your form. And if you demonstrate to me that you're back on form, then you'll get Premier League games. Now, in some instances, those referees that were effectively demoted, if that's the right word, never came back. Some did. But there were then a reaction by one particular individual who said, I'm not putting up with that, I'm off. And so he left the organization. So I think that referees are human, like players, they will make mistakes. It's owning that error, that's the first thing, and then trying desperately not to repeat it. And it becomes then, you know, if we look back at our careers, we learn very quickly by the mistakes that we made. Now, that might have been at grassroots level, but the argument that I have is when you get to the elite level, then by getting to the elite level, you've actually produced less errors in your game, if that's the right word, and you're, if you like, officiating at a high level of accuracy. Now, the old problem we've got in the game is in our day, yours and mine, we took on the responsibility of making the decisions. We had to stand or fall. We were assisted by our colleagues who would come in on occasions.
Sometimes we had a referee and line on our own.
Fair comment. And, you know, we would then get, and what we've got now in particular is VAR. And we have to admit, I mean, there's been sort of announcements today of fans' view on VAR in this country, and rejection is in high figures, like 75, 80% of fans saying, get rid of it.
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah.
That I feel is, I'm a strong believer in technology. It's how you use that technology. And we've discussed several times how well cricket and rugby in particular use not only technology, but I think they enhance the value of the match officials because you can listen to their proactive officiating. Not decisions, they're actually interfering, if you like, low level, not stopping the game, with words of warning or words of encouragement in the right manner. And they gain respect, the respect that rugby players brute guys, crashing into each other at great pace, having to go off with head injuries, all those sort of scenarios, the respect that these people receive. We talked earlier, 3 weeks ago, about the lady referee, the woman referee who did a top class game and actually officiated it brilliantly, and the players' respect for these match officials at rugby is something that I'm in awe of. I just think, why can we not move in that direction in our game? But sadly, all we're doing is concentrating on cheating to win rather than winning by entertainment and honesty.
Here's one from just a couple of comments going to read out now. Brian Wexler, who's a regular contributor, exactly what I said a few weeks ago. Video evidence of the game afterwards is the answer to punish these cheats, and a fine should follow as well. Well, I think we're all in agreement with that, Brian. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Will it happen?
Well, I think, Brian, the one thing I would like to see is, I think, particularly on simulation, then I would like to see that brought into the criteria of VAR.
Yeah.
That the VAR can have a second look, and if that means a slight delay, the referee goes to the monitor and he can say, no, I'm happy with the decision I've given, or that is an act of VAR, and he walks off and issues a yellow card. Now, in that situation, I know there's a reluctance to build and increase the amount of involvement with VAR, but look, this year coming from July onwards, second yellow cards will be in the criteria for review.
Yeah, and I did ask Quinton where he was viewing from, and he did say South Africa. Thank you, Quinton.
Thank you.
Jared O'Brien comes in and he says, would most of the demoted referees get back to the top level? Thanks, Keith.
Well, certainly one did. One quit, not accepting that there was a loss of form. And what is important is, at the top level, they are paid employees, and as their boss, I had to conform to employment law, i.e., verbal warnings, written warnings, letters of advice, to demonstrate that we as an organization have put every effort into that particular referee, monitoring his performance, fairness, all those sort of things, and if we had to go to a tribunal, an employment tribunal, then we had to answer that situation. But what was interesting with one tribunal, where our bottom marked assistant referee was averaging 7 out of 10, bottom of the list, right? The chairman of the tribunal said, Mr. Hackett, my daughter has just passed her O-levels getting a mark of 40%. Your 7% or 70% appears to me to be draconian. So this is how, when you have professional referees, how employment law can give you some problems. The other problem was European age legislation. You could no longer retire somebody. FIFA retire their referees generally at 45. We couldn't apply that because of European legislation. So that meant the other side of the coin was referees 52, 53 and performing adequately, not at the top of the list, but adequately, not and waiting for them to indicate they want retirement. So it's not an easy role when you go for professional match officials. But the answer is certainly one referee had a season off operating at Football League, recognized that his motivation, concentration, fitness need to be focused, and he did get back to the Premier League level.
Just to finish off, a couple of comments because, oh, goodness, way out of time again. Brian is happy. He's agreed with the comments we gave him there. And I did ask where Marvin Ash is from, and he tells me he's from Northern Cape, South Africa. So thank you once again, Keith, for making yourself available. And thanks to Brian, to Marvin, to Jared, and to who else? I think that was it. Yeah, for making comments and contributing to the show. And thank you out there for tuning in, because I do see that you must have copped on some way to the change in the hour going forward here. So some of you have got it and some haven't. But we will be back again next Monday night, same time, same place. It's most of you know it by now. It's facebook.com/Hanging Judge Ref. Until then, good night and God bless. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks.